Hey, this is Elia Einhorn. Welcome to the Talkhouse Podcast. Today I'm here with
Nick Dawson, Editor-in-Chief of Talkhouse Film.
The one and only Nick. We have a very cool podcast pairing today. Ken Marino and Paul Scheer, two guys who came up through sketch comedy, went on to write, direct, act, and collaborate.
Indeed. Yeah, they talk here today because Ken Marino has a new movie, How to Be a Latin Lover, that's out. It's a vehicle for Eugenio Derbez, who is this huge Mexican comedy star.
Massive star down there.
Yeah, and his sort of co-lead in the movie is Salma Hayek, and it has this a pantheon of comedy stars in it. Like all of the Robs, Rob Corddry, Rob Lowe, Rob Riggle, Rob Hubel, and Michael Cera.
Raquel Welch.
Kristen Bell is awesome in it. Michaela Watkins is in it. It's got kind of everybody.
This is a who's who of both Hollywood, but also people who came out of sketch comedy.
Yeah, because of course Ken came from the State. Michael Showalter, David Wayne, Joe Latruglio, Michael Ian Black.
Very influential group.
And Paul Scheer came up with Human Giant, Jason Wolner, Aziz Ansari, and Rob Hubel, who is also in the movie. So this is like, they really have a very similar background, as you said, and they have an intuitive understanding of one another.
They do. And the conversation touches both on those past connections and the way both of them have grown as artists. So one thing I really enjoyed in this conversation is the way that they talk about how members of their respective groups having success drove them towards new successes and new heights in their own artistry.
Right. There's this interesting question of identity for them because when you come up through that kind of group, you're doing everything, as you said. And,
you do it all.
And they've never stopped doing all those things. You know, Ken is not an actor. He's not a director. He's not a writer. He just does everything. And it's kind of a quandary for them in a way.
Nick, you're saying he is a comedy chimera.
I would not have expressed it like that, but I'm happy that you did. Yeah, I mean, they one of the things I really love about this conversation is they love to sort of play with one another comedically.
Oh, for sure. And of course, these guys really got to know each other, as they talk about in this conversation, when they worked on the show Party Down together.
Yeah, they did Party Down together and then went on to do Burning Love as well. And they're so good at riffing. They'll just take one tiny idea and run with it. And when they're talking about Pixar bloopers, Ken's dancing, Ken being a Luddite, there's like little threads that go through the podcast where you can hear them really laughing out loud or just kind of suppressing laughter. And, you know, they really just kind of dove in.
No starting topics, no hellos.
No intros, no formalities. They just wanted to do this thing really badly and they kind of crushed it.
They did. Let's roll it.
Okay.
So isn't that, well, we just start like we're talking like as if we were talking for a while, which we were. Yeah, nice. We're just talking. But isn't the blooper at the end of being there just one?
I thought
it's
it was
one long take.
I thought it was him messing up at the end of being.
Yes, but it's just him. It's one.
Right.
It's one scene. It's him
right.
lying down, and he's trying to recount something that happened, and he keeps cracking himself up.
Right.
He's like, you tell whatever and then he just keeps cracking up, and it's a long take, or they do jump cuts, but it's the same.
Well, then my
scene.
memory of it was as a kid, like bloopers to me were because I grew up in the time too. It was like Cannonball Run. It was like, what? Let's see these bloopers. Let's see Frank Sinatra like cracking up at Dom DeLuise or whatever it is.
Right,
like,
right.
You know, like
Dean Martin, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, bloopers they were always fun, and then they made when we were growing up, there was a whole, do you remember watching, like, getting excited and watching, like, a half hour, an hour of just bloopers from,
practical jokes like that. Like
bloopers
that,
and practical jokes, but
like,
like the, what the hell was it? The cop show from way back when, You All Be Careful Out There, what is that?
Hill Street Blues?
Hill Street Blues,
yeah.
Remember? And I remember a Hill Street Blues blooper where, like, they're doing a scene, and then they had just won an Emmy the night before, and what's his name? Like, they're doing the scene, but the Emmy's on the...
Oh, on the board?
Yeah, like on a desk, and so, like, one of the actors, like Dennis Franz or somebody, just kind of walks out and nonchalantly grabs the Emmy walking out and, like, trying to save the scene.
To me, the one I'm actually most amazed at is, I don't know if you ever saw it, but these Pixar movies, I don't even know how they get these bloopers. Because it's sort of like, I would think that's,
it's very difficult with animation, animated characters to get them to sign off to show any mistakes.
Because the whole thing is like I believe that Lightning McQueen is a real car. And then when I see him just laughing,
What do you mean you believe he's a real car?
well, I'm saying like I believe that I believe that Lightning McQueen is a racer who was abandoned in Radiator Springs. That's what I'm saying. So when he's laughing in those blooper reels, I'm like, well, what's the reality?
I mean, I think those are staged.
You see, and I bet, because that's a Disney thing. That's like,
I think they pay those actors.
You're right.
To create those bloopers. I think Lightning McQueen, because I don't think Lightning McQueen would ever make mistakes.
Well, I mean, the only mistake that he makes is self-reliance. And then, and then realizing that, it does need a team. We
were talking about bloopers because the end of Latin Lover, we did, we shot.
You did a double whammy, in my opinion, of the end of Latin Lover, because I was watching that film with a crowd, a normal paying crowd. I'd paid for your movie, and
thank you very much thank you for your support.
Yeah, and I felt like you did the double whammy, which is there's like it's not a sing along, it's a dance along that was very fun to watch because it's like something about Mary ends with that like they're all singing a song. There's something like real like. I left that theater excited because there was a dance along and then there was bloopers. I left very
okay. We did a double whammy.
We doubled down. But by the way, in a great way because I feel like that was. To me, anyway, the movie is such a fun. It's a fun movie to watch, and it's kind of.
It's a romp. It's a comic romp.
I don't. Look, I'm gonna agree with you right here. I'm gonna say it is a comic romp, but there was something really fun about it, and maybe it was also just the excitement of finding this actor who is a gigantic star, Eugenio, right? That's
Eugenio Derbez. Yeah, he's huge in Mexico.
A star on the Walk of Fame. Mm-hmm. Like his movies make a ton of money, but to me, I've never seen any of his movies.
Didn't know who he was,
and it was just so fun to see him. I thought Salma Hayek was great. Those two Robs, I never saw those guys before. Rob Hubel, Robert, I love those guys. No, but there was something really fun about watching somebody that you don't know who's so kind of like wonderfully effortless. I don't know how to describe it more than that.
He's a charming, he's a very good actor and comedian, and he's seasoned. He's been doing it for a very long time, and so there's an ease to his performance, and there's a confidence to his performance, and that's why he carries that movie. And when I came on as the director. I didn't know a lot of his work. I had seen Instructions Not Included, and then I went back and watched some of his other stuff, which was a lot of TV stuff.
Which is hard, though, for you, because subtitles, I imagine that's a tough thing for you to get through, right? A little bit.
It's hard for me because I don't own anything to watch it on, so I had to sneak into friends' homes and
I understand that. Like you live a very simple life.
I'm a Luddite.
Yeah,
I don't have any electric in my house. I mean, I'm actually.
Is that an allergy thing, or is that just you, or is that a choice?
No, Luddites tend to be a choice. Although there are people who are allergic, like
from Better Call Saul.
Mike's brother.
It's Saul Goodman's brother, but
Jimmy's brother.
Jimmy McGill's brother.
Do you watch Better Call Saul?
I love Better Call Saul.
Me too. I think it's great.
But this goes into my whole thing about you directing Latin Lover. I've worked with you obviously as a director, but no, but I want to.
You're a wonderful actor and slash comedian. You're just a wonderful talent.
Whatever. So, but I do have like an honest, earnest question about you approaching this movie. So you are not super familiar with this guy who
Eugenio
Derbez, and you kind of catch up on him, but in jumping into a movie directing him, he's a huge star. So you're kind of directing someone who, in many respects, has I imagine a lot of opinions about the comedy, about the story he wants to tell.
He's a guy. So I ask you a question.
We're going in the right direction.
He's a guy who has been doing this for over a quarter of a decade, maybe 30 years or so. He's been in the business. And he comes from TV and sketch comedy. He created his own sketch comedy show.
Okay.
Where he played all these crazy, big, broad, ridiculous characters. Yeah. He did a spin-off sitcom off of that about this family who actually wears all these furry clothes. Then he kind of crossed over and came over here and did, guest spots and did he was on the sitcom Rob, and he did a bunch of stuff with Adam Sandler.
Okay.
And little parts in Adam Sandler movies. And he's just been around. He's done all sorts of things. But the big breakout movie that he did was about 4 or 5 years ago called Instructions Not Included.
Right. I remember seeing the billboards around LA, and then people were saying that this movie was a gigantic hit.
Yes, and he wrote and directed and like had his hand in editing, and he starred in it, and he's charming in it. And so yes, I was not concerned about it, but I was interested to see how much he wanted to be involved in the process, and why he wasn't directing this.
Yeah.
The reason he didn't want to direct it is because this was sort of his first stab at a crossover movie.
Right.
It was mostly English, and he wanted to get like Hollywood actors to be in it, and he was worried about the difference between American humor and Mexican humor. And so, just to go back to your earlier question,
working with this big star,
with Eugenio, who's like, is he controlling? Is he a guy who like wants to be involved? He is a guy who wants to be involved in all aspects of it.
Right.
But what's great about Eugenio is he's a guy who. He's just a good guy. Like he's very humble, and he's hardworking, and he's dedicated, and he just wants to get the joke right, and he wants to get the lines right, or he wants to get the scene right. And he'll come into edit, and he'll come in and make suggestions about like different jokes, or maybe if you cut it like this, and he's aware of all of those aspects of it. I mean, just much like you and I, because we did our own.
Yeah,
you did. I
had NTSF, and I've had a league or whatever.
Right. And then you and Rob did your sketch comedy show.
Oh yeah, Human Giant. Yes,
the Human Giant. And we, I did the State, and that whole, I think you and I were educated in like our school of comedy was like we were involved in all aspects of it.
Yeah,
right?
you have to be.
I think in the editing room, and you write it, and you're in it, and how are you shooting it, and he's the same way. And so to go back to that first question. He was involved. I wasn't scared of it. In fact, that's why I think I got the job. I walked into the meeting and I was like, I know you.
Right.
We have very similar careers, in some ways. I can help, and we can do this together. And I think he responded to that, and that's... So
I have a bunch of questions, though, for you, because... The movie also looked like it had a budget, like a significant budget. Am I right in that, or
no?
Okay, really?
No, we didn't have a big budget.
Wow, that movie, it looked great.
But we had a great DP, and we were lucky in that some of the locations we intentionally were trying to make it feel like a bigger movie, because again, this was Eugenio's calling card, like his like crossover movie or whatever you want to call it. It was the movie where he was. His coming out party to
So you don't want to make it look like an indie movie. You want to make it look like you have some,
So one of the things, I tried to do is anytime there was a new location, we'd really try to make it big and colorful and just look more expensive than it looks. The luxury we had is... there's that big party sequence at the end. We found this incredible yard that already looked, with the order is 80% there, but then we have like Marsha Hines or production designer goose it up to make it look extreme.
Yeah, because it looked insanely beautiful. I mean, that when I saw that scene, I was like, wow, this is like you have a lot of money.
But we didn't.
Right. So, in a weird way, you're working a little bit outside of your group of friends, but you were able to kind of bring in some amazing people that from our world, which is Rob Corddry, Rob Riggle, Rob Hubel, Rob Lowe, all Robs.
Kristen Bell, Michaela Watkins, Michael Cera, and Linda Lavin.
And why am I forgetting his name right now? He hosted Newsreaders, Mather Zickel.
Oh, Mather Zickel, yeah.
And so
kills it.
Yeah, great. And I thought that was kind of a great thing, though, too, because you have these other people who, I thought Kristen Bell was great in the movie, by the way. But it was it's interesting do they trust you essentially to bring in these people? Because I would imagine you're introducing a few of those people, at least, to them.
I think, again, when I was interviewing for the job, one of my pitches to Eugenio was like, I know you, and I think we can do this together, and we're on the same page. And And the other pitch was like, I have a lot of, like, I'm lucky enough to have all these like really funny people. I mean, it was the same with Burning Love. Like,
Yeah. I mean, you got
called you up and I
Yeah.
was like, would you do this? And you were nice enough to say, yeah, I'll come and do it. And like, that's like more than half the battle to get like somebody who's super funny to come in and like.
Well, the fact you got Michael Cera in a movie is, I think, like because Michael seems so, and we know Michael, but it's like, but he pops up in.
You never know.
You never know. Like sometimes you could be like, oh, Michael, he lives in Japan now. Like you don't know. Like
that's right.
It's just.
Well, something happened with Michael, and I think that this won him over. There was something with Cloris Leachman was. We were talking about Cloris Leachman. For a little while, she was in like the mix of kind of, hey, what about Cloris Leachman? Because I love Cloris Leachman.
Yeah, she's amazing.
I'll let you wear my underwear from High Anxiety and from everything, and Young Frankenstein. And so we were talking about her a little bit, and then I went out to not with Michael Cera, but like with the producers, and then I went out to Michael Cera, and I just texted him, and I was like, hey man, I'm doing this movie. I was wondering if you could do this part. FYI, just a crazy thing. Met Cloris Leachman.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was so crazy. Like I could knock that off my bucket list, whatever. And he was like, "Oh, Cloris Leachman." And then we went back and forth with like names of Cloris Leachman characters in movies, and we just started like. He was like, yeah, send me the script or whatever. Yeah. But then we were just talking about Cloris Leachman and then Young Frankenstein and Last Picture Show and all these different things. And then I think because of that, he was like, he felt like for some reason.
It could like attachment or whatever.
Yeah, we had a nice like conversation. He's like, yeah, I'll do it. Because I don't know. But I'm so glad he did it because I think because he came in with his sort of Gene Wilder hair.
Yeah.
And I thought that in my head, he came in with that hairstyle because he came in with a hairstyle.
Right.
You know how you like sometimes like you walk in, you have a look that you like.
Yeah, like, hey, what do you think? That's what I'm thinking.
And so he came in and I didn't even go to hair and makeup. He just showed up on the set like with his hair like that. And I was like, perfect, great, I love it. But in my head, he did it because he did that hairstyle because it was an homage to Gene Wilder in Young Frankenstein because we were talking about Cloris Leachman. That could be a stretch, but that's why I think he did.
It makes sense. Like he's so funny, and it was great that was the fun of it, seeing all the surprises throughout. My question now to you about your trajectory. I think you and I have similar trajectories in a certain way because it's sort of like you came up with this sketch group and like a very revered sketch group of the state, and then tell me where I'm wrong.
And you with Human Giant.
Oh, thank you. But tell me where I'm wrong about me knowing about you. So then my interpretation of it was always like you were you went boom, came out to Hollywood, and then you started working nonstop. Right, as like kind of like you were in shows and pop, like you were like, at least when I was in New York, I was like, oh well, Ken is like the big star. He's in LA doing.
Oh,
that was the interpretation of it, that you had gone off to make your.
Do you want me to correct as you go along?
Yeah,
or do you want to? You're going to do the timeline, and then you want to.
Well, yeah. I guess. and then I guess I got to know you. But there was like, so you kind of came out here, and you were doing pilots, and you were on shows. And again, I'm doing large jumps, but then. You got involved in children's, and then you were obviously you did you were in Wet Hot the movie, but then you co-wrote Role Models with David, and then Burning Love. Like so, you've kind of run the gamut of. I guess what I'm saying is like you've directed, you've written, you've done sketch, you've done mainstream network television, you've done really weird Adult Swim TV. Like you really have done. Everything. And obviously you've been in movies and stuff too, but it's like you kind of have your career kind of is a little bit all over the place. And
I think sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes a bad thing. But I want to do a question to you about what you just asked me. But I mean, the state happened, and then when the state stopped making money, we weren't making money. We all were like, okay, well, we're not really breaking up, but we're sort of breaking up because we all have to get work. Right. And then soon after that, I auditioned for a couple of things. I think I came out here for pilot season, and I was out here with Joe Latruglio and Ali Marsh, and we were roommates for the 2 or 3 months we were out here, and then I wound up getting a pilot that immediately got canceled, and then I moved back to New York. But it was with it was 3 brothers moved back into their parents' house because the parents moved down to Florida.
Okay.
And it was me, Mark Ruffalo, and Sean Astin as brothers.
Whoa.
And Jamie Widows, who was a
Cheers? Is that Cheers?
No, Jamie Widows directed it. He was in Animal House. He was I state your name. He's the guy who says I state.
Okay.
So he directs a lot now, but
Yeah.
tall, redheaded guy.
Yeah.
So that didn't go. Wow. But then Mark Ruffalo went on to do, the next thing he did
Yeah.
was like, and I remember talking to him on the set because it was a 4-camera thing, and he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I like this sitcom stuff. He's like, I don't think this is for me. And then he immediately went in, and like the next thing he was in was like, you can count on me.
Yeah.
And then he was a gigantic star. And then Sean Astin went on to do like Lord of the Rings, right after that. But what I did was I immediately, that show got canceled. And then they had looked for a replacement for Ron Eldard on Men Behaving Badly, the second season. And I had, they had looked through everybody, but I was on hold, so I couldn't audition for it.
Okay.
But then they still hadn't cast anybody. Then I was released from that sitcom, and then I got an audition, and I got that job. And and that's when I moved out here.
Okay.
And I had 13 episodes on an NBC show, which then immediately got canceled after 8. And then I was out here. And my trajectory after that, at that point, was like, pilot and it not going, or guest spot of like Nice Guy Boyfriend. And I wasn't really I wasn't focused on doing like big comedies. I was just like, let me see if I can kind of survive by myself without the 11-headed beast known as the state.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what I was doing for a while out here. But sort of rudderless, like not like hoping that I would just hit something as an actor. And I wasn't focused on writing or directing or producing or any of that.
And when you were in the state, when you were there, were you writing a lot, or were you more of a,
Well, that's the thing. Like, we did everything in the state, much like you guys did, we wrote it, we wrote our material, we acted in it, we edited it, we directed it. So we were involved in the whole thing. And so I always had a taste for that.
Yeah.
But acting was something I've wanted to do since I was, in 4th grade, And so I was like, let me see if I could do this acting thing. And I sort of let the other stuff fall by the wayside. And then David and I got together and wrote this ridiculous movie called The 10.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Where we locked ourselves in a room for a week and just wrote a script and we're like, let's see if we could shoot this without anybody giving us notes.
I remember, I think part of the impetus of The 10 was because, am I wrong in remembering that David was on Best Week Ever, which was a show I was doing in New York, and he was a special correspondent for Best Week Ever at Sundance. And I think there was, or this is at least the story that I remember hearing, because Owen Burke, my friend who now works for Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's company and is an amazing improviser, writer, performer, everything, he's great, was thinking that like David was there at Sundance and being like, the fuck, all these people, I can make a movie. I'm going to make a movie. And then like came back to...
Well, he did, Wet Hot was the first movie. Wet Hot was the first movie that went to Sundance. He and Showalter wrote that. And that was, I was out here and they asked me to do a small part in that. And so I was in the movie, but that was still while I was...
My timeline is all over the place.
That's while I was still out here just kind of trying to get pilots and doing guest spots and stuff like that, but not writing anything. I'm going to get back to my question to you,
Sure.
but the thing that I noticed when like Showalter and David, the thing that I saw, David and Showalter wrote Wet Hot,
right,
and they were getting that produced. Tom Lennon and Ben Garant came out here and they were writing movies and selling things. Mike Black was writing scripts, and so the state always had a competitive thing going on, right? I mean, it was just, but it was a healthy, for the most part, it was a healthy competitive thing.
Yeah.
And so I was like, fuck that. I'm going to write a movie. I could write a movie. I wrote back then. I'm going to write it. And so that's the thing that got me back into writing, and wanting to do other things than just acting. which I was doing for about 5 years post the state. I was just like, I'm just gonna act, and then Dave and I started writing, and then I started kind of shadowing directors and directing. But did you and Rob and Aziz have a like? Do you guys like feed off of each other, and do you go like, oh fuck, he's doing that, I'm gonna try to do this, or
I think it's interesting because, and I'll just put for the sake of this conversation, Jason Wolner is our fourth member. He directed pretty much the line, like I would say 95% of our show, and wrote equally with the four of us. Just to say it, because I feel like he never gets to play. But I think there was half and half. We were a tighter group. There's only like four.
It was a smaller group. Yeah.
So I think what happened was when we decided not to do our third season, we were asked by MTV come back and do a third season. Now at that point, Aziz had gotten Parks and Rec, but it was not Parks and Rec yet. But it was like the show. So the thought was we can do a third season. But Aziz now is committed to Parks and Rec, and Mike Scheer and Greg Daniels were like, "Don't worry about it. We'll get him out for you guys. We'll get him out. We don't want to wreck this group. We don't want to be responsible for wrecking the group." And we all had this honest conversation, and Aziz is like, "I'm down. Like let's do this." But we had this conversation like, and this is probably I think more spearheaded by myself because I could see a little bit ahead. I was like, I feel like if we start writing and Aziz comes in, because he's now been working on Parks and Rec and goes like, well, I don't like this sketch, we're going to build up resentment to him. Like, well, you're not around. You're not writing it.
Right.
And equally like, now because we would write everything as a group. It had to be 100%. We all were in at 100%. It was never like 3 versus 1. It was like we agreed.
Everybody had to agree to do it.
And so I was like, and then I would see like, well, now we're writing sketches for Aziz, but Aziz is not here. So why are we writing for him when we could be? I could see if we did a third season, those tensions rising. And I was like, I don't think this is a good environment for us because the way that we worked as a group was incredibly collaborative. And then you take out one person who had a very strong voice in that group. And for better or for worse, like we all had very strong opinions about what we thought worked and what we didn't. And so my thought was, I don't think we should continue doing the show because I don't think it will have the same thing that we've always had. So at that point, we decided not to go on. So to answer your question, I think we left as friends. Like we left going like, oh, that was good. And then Aziz and Wolner seemingly kind of partnered up a little bit to write stuff together. And then Hubel and
It seems like you and Hubel did too.
Kind of partnered up too. So we just kind of broke, and then those alliances kind of broke even from there. Like Aziz was doing stand-up, and Rob is
everybody's doing their own thing. But I mean, but it seems like, didn't you like kind of go, okay, well, those guys are doing? I mean, did you ever use what the other guys were doing to kind of fuel your passion for something?
Absolutely. I think like, oh, Aziz is writing these movies for Appetite. Like I should be like doing this, right? And I think you're always like feeling like I'm not doing enough. And I think because of from what we come from, like comedy, like you can do all the pieces of this puzzle. So it's like, well, I should be writing a thing. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And I think, for me, it was like, like when I saw what Rob was doing with Children's, I was like, that seems like fun. I want to do something in that world. Like I want like a 15-minute show. I want and I think you're always inspired by other people. But I don't think it ever got to be competitive. I don't know. It's weird. It was not, I'm sure it was all underlying, but I never like.
Well, there's the green-eyed monster, right? Like is that the term? The green-eyed monster of like the guy that like you're jealous of I feel like the state for me was there at all different points in my career. I'm always like there's the green-eyed monster of like I'm jealous of this, or why is this person getting this, or why is this? But what I'm saying is with the state, I love those guys so much, and I think you love the guys in Human Giant so much that like, and I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, I do. We have so much. We are friends, and still to this day.
Those are my brothers and sister, and so watching them succeed in something was exciting, but also kind of sparked a competitive flame in a more in a more positive than negative way. Like watching Tom
Right, you're
and
not
Ben
rooting for
succeed.
you're not rooting for their failure.
No, but I'm like, all right, if they could do that, I'm going to do this. And so then I went off and like wrote I was like, I'm going to write a big comedy movie. And I wound up writing Diggers, which is this tiny little slice of life, independent like dramedy.
Yeah.
But we got it done. And, and I'm happy about it. It's like this, but it was my first like screen credit of a movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would have done that if I didn't see that Ben and Showalter were writing something and Black was writing something.
I think, maybe to answer your question more effectively, it seemed, and I'm putting words now in your mouth, the State was your comedy community because 11 people, to me, the UCB is my comedy community. So it was like, yes, Aziz, Rob, Jason, but also Rob Riggle, Rob Corddry, Ed Helms,
Owen Burke.
But so I was in a group of people that we were performing together. So it was like a grouping of 50 people. I'm like, oh, they're doing that. Oh, Scott Armstrong wrote Old School. Oh, like this guy is on this show. Like, and all of a sudden, it was our whole scene was kind of blowing up together. So yes, you're right. But it was just like it was a wider swatch. But so I want to go back to one thing that you said because I identify with this, and I would love to hear what you think. Like because you've written movies, you've directed a movie, you've directed series, you've been in series, you've done network, you've done cable, you've done this acclaimed, show that people, party over here. You've done every facet of acclaimed.
What was it, Clean?
I was a party over, party down. Sorry, yeah, party down. Why? Yeah. I think that's. Don't you think that's like one of the most like in the pantheon of like great sitcoms? It's up there. I feel like.
I think that there is a small group of people who really cherish that show, as do I.
That's where you and I met.
Yeah. No, is it?
Yeah. I remember that, like, we may have been around each other, but I feel like that was the first time I remember connecting with you on that set.
Really?
I think so. I mean, that's been a while. I mean, that's a while ago, I feel like.
That's crazy to me. I thought we knew each other before then, but maybe you're right.
I feel like that was the time I remember going like, oh, I really like this guy Ken. He's really funny.
I'm very nice and I'm extremely funny.
But
Thank
I mean, obviously, and obviously children's too. But I'm saying, but there was something about Party Over Here is I think always spoken of.
Stop saying Party Over Here.
Why do you want to say Party Over? Sorry,
I don't know. Party Over
down.
There.
Yeah. I did a show called Party Over Here. That's why. Party Down.
You were great in that. Party Over Here.
But no, Party Down. Like I feel like it's always mentioned that way. So what I'm saying to you is, to get back to this, it is, I think, tough when you're known not just as an actor or not just as a director, not just as a writer, and like what do you want to do? You worked, recently you were on, Marry Me. It's a big network show, and at the same time you're doing very cool, and not to say that wasn't cool. I'm just saying, but you're all over the board. Do you find that to be difficult and like to pitch yourself as what you are?
Yes, because what I really want to do is I want to dance.
Well, and that's the thing I know about you, and I'm glad that we are here to finally talk. The two things I wanted to talk about was, one, I wanted to talk about the murder case that I feel like you've been getting a bad rap in all the papers. I believe your story.
Even there. I haven't been to Canada in years.
And the fact that this fake media is pulling out these facts, it's sickened by it. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about dance. And
my love of dance.
To me, watching you dance is seeing, and the only way I can describe it is
it's like
a rose bloom or a flower bloom. It's like a nature documentary.
It's like watching a feather in the wind.
I'm amazed that Alvin Ailey, does he play a large part?
Alvin Ailey was quoted saying, watching my first recital was a revelation.
See, that's amazing. And he actually
and that's
did
Alvin Ailey. That's not me.
And that was in Alvin Ailey, I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, but does a yearly performance of a thing called Revelation based on
Party Over There.
Party Over There.
The answer to your question is, all I've tried to do in my career is to try to work and pay my bills and try to work with people who I enjoy working with as much as I possibly can. As I've gotten older, that's become easier to do. When I was younger, just whatever job I can get, I would take. When I got back into doing stuff more than just
Actor for
acting, when I started writing and directing and producing and doing stuff with Dave and kind of getting back deep into the comedy world and doing like these like smaller shows or these, like sort of on the edges kind of shows that people dig, I was able to kind of control more who I would work with. And so, but when hindsight being 2020, I always go, man, if I just kind of stayed focused on one thing or did this thing, I mean, what would it have been like? What would my career have been like to this point, and who knows? I don't know. I mean, like, so
I have that same thought, and I'll tell you how I've come to at least terms on it is like, I think it will be slightly less fulfilling because I think part of the thing that, or at least for me, fuels me to do the next thing is like, oh, I've done a little bit of this. Now let me like switch it up and now focus on like it's fun, I think, to sometimes be an actor in someone's production where you have no stakes. I don't have to go to the edit room. I don't have like you got it. I don't have to worry about budget.
Right.
Then there's moments where I'm like I'm
control
all
it.
over it. Like, what does the costume look like? What is this? Or like has this? And I think fluctuating in and out of that, we have this amazing ability to kind of to try different things. Like it's like I feel like once you kind of give over to one thing, then it may be hard to figure out what you are. Maybe people are like, well, but is he directing now? Like people thinking to you like, oh, well, is he looking for his next big directing job, or are you looking to do a network show?
And the truth is I'm doing both. But people are like, I thought you were directing now. You're auditioning for stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing the same shit, like the same.
Because people want to put you in this thing and go like, oh, but this and that, and I think, and when you have success at it, it's harder because like, well, I just saw you on Marry Me. Right? You're just the lead on Marry Me, so you're co-lead on Marry Me. Like, so. Wait, so now you're not acting? No, it's like they can all exist.
Right.
And I think I hopefully it's more, people are getting more and more behind that. But I think it feels more healthy to be able to be like, yeah, you got to direct this great movie, work with new people, try new things. And now whatever you're interested in, you can follow next.
Right. I mean, and but what's interesting to me, for me at this point, this movie came out, Had to Be a Latin Lover came out, and like people are going to see it, and it didn't like just disappear and nobody saw it. Like
it came in number 2 at the box office against like a giant movie.
It's doing well, knock on wood, and it's and people are going to see it, and it's considered.
It's a hit, right?
I mean, I don't even want to say those words, but it's not considered a failure.
Right.
So. Hopefully that will generate, more opportunities as a director. But I'm still like, trying to grind it out as an actor. But it makes me kind of go, okay, well, what is the thing that, because like I went in and I kind of tried to grab this job and I saw, I had a take on it and I wanted to work with Eugenio. But like, what is the thing that, like, what would be the next thing that I would direct? And I don't know. I mean, like I'm because of the kind of hodgepodge patchworky sort of career that I've had, which is like all these different things. I mean, that's maybe a slightly negative way of saying it.
But I feel like the same way. I might
always what is the next thing that I kind of want to do? Because I want to do, there's like 15 things I want to do. So like, what is the right choice? And I don't think there is a right choice. You just have to pick something.
Oh, I think I always was looking for people that tell me what I should be doing next. I feel the same way. I want to, like, I have this and I want to have this and I want to do this. And I was waiting for someone to say like, oh, no, this is what you should do. And I realized lately, I'm like, oh, I don't need that because you just do that. I think if you just follow the thing that you're most passionate about in that moment, right? Then you can it will be successful because of that. The minute you feel like you begrudgingly, like if you didn't want to direct this movie and someone's like, yeah, but Ken, I'm going to tell you, if you do this, then you'll get get in this world, and then you'll get this, and then you'll get this, and then if you're making a decision to get 4 steps ahead, I find those are sometimes the worst decisions because you're like, well, I'll do this, but I don't really want to do this. I'm trying to do it for this other thing. And I feel like if you and it sounds dumb, it's like chase your passion, but it's like what you're excited about in that moment.
Although I will say I just had sort of the opposite conversation with my team, right?
Okay, yeah.
Which is like I'm like, all right, so what's the thing?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? And they're like, well, there's this, here's 15 things that you can read and look at and consider and talk about. And not like here are things you can definitely get. Like here are things that you can go out and try to get, right? And I'm like, maybe it's just this like fantasy version of Hollywood to me. But I always thought, and I said this in the room, I was like, I always in my head, I want like somebody to be like, slap down a piece of paper and be like, here's your next thing, and this is what you have to do.
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know if I've ever said that. You know, like I don't know if we've ever said that. That is like, it's such a weird, fucked up, like romantic,
you think
distorted version of how it goes.
That someone's gonna like present to you a career path that you're like, now the door is open and here we go. Is there a reason why you didn't appear in this movie at all, Latin Lover?
I was kind of on standby if somebody, if you know, going back to an much earlier question, I called up a lot of friends and asked them. I've been very lucky. I have a lot of talented, funny friends that I've worked with. And
my
I called
phone,
them up.
my phone was broken. I think for when you were in a lot of pre-production stuff,
I know you didn't return my call, so I don't know what happened.
So
you were great in Burning Love. Thank you so much. But I called some friends up and I was like, would you be interested in doing this? And if for some reason we were getting close to production and shooting and somebody said no or had to drop out, I was on standby to drop myself in.
Well, but
I had no desire to be in the movie.
But yeah, to me, like, is it because?
I mean, not that's
because you wanted to focus on being a director.
Yeah,
is that like
yes?
Because I think that is. I think you're taking on something, or at least in my opinion, in watching it, like this is a big deal and a big step. So it was like to be solely focused on one thing, right? Or is it that? Or is it no?
I mean, like Burning Love was one of the most incredible experiences of my professional career, which is like I had such a great time. I got to work with my wife, who wrote, created this world in the show, people. And I was directing myself, and the only time it was difficult for me, because people are like, wasn't it hard, like directing and being, the only time it was difficult was when it was like a lot of people and I had to figure out, like, make sure I was covering the whole scene properly. Right. But like when you're in a scene, it's actually easier because I know how to, I've done it long enough where I can like give myself a note in the moment or drop out of the character and be like, can you bring the camera over here and do this and keep rolling and then pick it up again and just jump right back into it.
It was fun to watch you do that, to kind of work that way. But you're also trusting someone behind a monitor too, or no? Or you just keeping it on your head?
You make sure that you have like, my DP of that was great and Frank Barrera, and then and then Eric is there watching the monitor. And so like, you have people you trust and you turn to them and you go, did you get that? You sure we got that? And in my head, I'm like, I want to make sure that moment was framed up. Was that good? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So I enjoy being in something and directing it. But for this, like, I was like, I guess I sort of wanted to impress Eugenio by being like, here, I can pull all these people in and not throw myself. Like, it seems like there was like I wanted to make sure he didn't think I wanted to weasel myself into the movie. You know what I mean?
And then, and this is a dumb question, but as we wrap up here, was it hard to direct in a foreign language in those scenes? Because especially the scene where they're drinking tequila, where he's kind of like getting her to get ready for this date. Like that's an emotional core moment of the movie.
I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
Tiny little bit. But
Poco.
Un poquito. But I had the luxury of Ben O'Dell, the producer, who was a great guy who spoke Spanish and English, and Eugenio, who I felt like was the sort of player coach. He was like in the moment, and he's directed before, and so I would go to him and I'd say, how was that? How'd that feel to you? Because I feel like even though I didn't know every word they were saying, I followed it emotionally. Right. And if you can call bullshit on something. You can call bullshit on acting, no matter what language it's in.
It's funny because sometimes if you watch, I do this every now and then. Like if you watch TV with the sound off, you can kind of tell where what is going on just based on just seeing just the posturing, the face, everything. Yeah,
that's right. And so I would go in and I'd be like, Eugenio, how'd you feel about that? And he's like, well, I stuttered on this or I tripped up on this. I'd like to do that again. I'm like, it felt right. How did it feel to you? And he's like, no, it felt good. It felt like I would say that it's the same with Selma. I'd be like, or I'd say to Eugenio, how did Selma?
Yeah.
How did she throw that line out right. He's like, yeah, that was great. And we talk about it between takes and stuff like that. So, it was different. It was a different experience for me. But
especially because those are some that part of the film is a very it's
important.
Important move. Yeah,
it's important because it grounds the whole movie. And it's my favorite scenes. Those are my favorite scenes in the movie.
I love that scene. Yeah, that was a great scene.
And that was inspired by Salma saying, I can, just in talking to her before she got the part, she's like, I there's one thing I would like to try to fit into the movie. I can turn a sad song into a salsa. And so we're like, okay. And then I looked at Eric and she's like, and made this great scene.
It was so great. Well, it's been so fun talking to you here on the podcast that neither of us host. And
it was wonderful. Can we put our clothes back on?
Yeah, I think so. And we'll just go out with you dancing. So take it away, Ken. If you could only see what I'm watching here, it is unbelievable. Wow. God damn. Even if you don't like dancing, you're going to love this. Wow. Wow.
Plie. Releve.
Shit.
Oh, and I stuck the ending there. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
If that really is your name.
Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, and now Ken Marino with Paul Scheer.
That is his real name.
It is his real name, and that was their conversation.
You are really Nick Dawson. I really am Elia Einhorn. Our producer is Markio Shizumi. Thank you so much to Bedrock Studios in Los Angeles for recording today's podcast.
They really did record it there.
They did. And thanks to you listeners who keep coming back and who take the time to go to iTunes, go to Stitcher, and give us a good rating so that other people can find the podcast.
Do it. It's worth it. We value you.
We thank you, whatever your name really is.
Over and out.
Till next time.
Yo, game recognized game, right? Am I right?
Oh, shit.